Hello, my name is Heather Weaver and welcome to my TED Talk. Have you or anyone you know ever been sexually assaulted? Well, about 1 in every 6 American women have had a committed or attempted sexual assault or completed sexual assault against them in their lifetime. And less than half of those, and a quarter of those sexual assaults are reported. What about women in our country that have little to no rights? What about women that have little to no legal representation in our country? The population I speak of is incarcerated women in America. So, according to a November 2018 report by the Prison Policy Initiative, about 219,000 women are incarcerated in the United States in about 2018. And an estimated 80,600 inmates each year experience sexual violence in jail or prison. And about 60% of sexual violence is committed against inmates is perpetuated by or committed by prison staff. So the amount of sexual assault or sexual violence amongst inmates, especially females, is perpetually high. So not only are they more likely to be sexually assaulted in prison, but also, according to a research paper, the impact of sexual abuse on later sexual victimization among runaway youth. Early sexual abuse in the home increase the likelihood of later sexual victimization on the streets indirectly by increasing the amount of time at risk, deviant peer affiliations, participating in deviant subsistence strategies, and engaging in survival sex. So, basically, runaway youth are more likely to go to prison for engaging in prostitution, drug abuse, selling of drugs, and deviant behavior such as burglary, gang violence, and such. So many of these people, women, that are incarcerated are more likely to be victims of sexual abuse from being on the streets as youth or from just their homes in general. So why is this important? Why are we talking about incarcerated women more specifically? Well, a big issue in America, especially right now, with the incarcerated women is that they're more likely to be victims of human sex trafficking. And how is this possible? Well, based on the public information, the government allows people to access, for example, online you can access someone's mugshots, you can access what they went to jail for, you can access their release dates and their like when they were arrested. So basically, human traffickers or pimps can go online, research women that are about to be released or when women are going to be released, mugshots, what these women look like, their charges, so if they're previously engaged in prostitution or if they had a drug habit and they were arrested for drugs. So this makes them, so these pimps are handpicking their human sex trafficking victims. It's just an open buffet for them. And the strategy for these pimps is usually they know when the women will be released, so they start sending them letters, they start sending them money, they start sending them gifts to gain their trust, to gain their sympathies, and to make them more likely to trust them. And in the case of The Guardian, they did an investigation they did a documentary called The Trap, where they did an in-depth look on when these women were incarcerated, and they include the example of a man called Richard Rawls, who was a career criminal, and he specifically targeted about 18 women in the Orlando, Florida area by sending them money, gifts, and then for one woman he gave her crack, and she was an addict, so she gave more and more. She needed more and more of that substance, and then he eventually told her she needed to pimp herself out in order to pay him back for the money of what the drug cost him to buy for her. So usually incarcerated women have little to no money. They come from an impoverished background. They are victims of usually sexual abuse or child molestation. They come from broken homes. So these women are basically perfect for human traffickers to prey upon. So, and then this is happening all over the country. The only thing special about Richard Rawls was that he was caught, because he had about, as he said, 25 women trapped in a house, and took a 18-month investigation to then bust him, and him having all those women trapped in his house, and they were all previously incarcerated women. So, based on what we've seen, based on like the statistics of these women, with their likelihood of being having substance abuse, being sexually abused as children, as minors, and also as adults, and basically jail staff not really caring, and then human traffickers then having methods to then pick them. What is being done to stop this? What is being done to resolve this issue? Well, not much. And from a social worker perspective, it is vital that we stop this. So a proposal I have is that we have more social workers in prisons running programs and classes telling these women what they're vulnerable to and what they should watch out for, and people that are targeting them. And we should have more education and more help, more therapy for these women that are being from sexual assault victims, from childhood sexual assault victims as well, molestation. We should have more compassion towards these women, and we should help decrease the recidivism rate these women have of going back to prison for their drug abuse, for their emotional instability. We should have more social workers trying to work this issue so that basically these women that are being handpicked for human trafficking are no longer are educated, and they have the tools to no longer be victims of even more abuse than they have already suffered in their life. So, these women have just basically been forgotten about in society. These women have been ignored. They're considered lesser than because they've had charges against them, criminal charges. These women are still people, and these women still deserve human rights, especially women that have been abused their whole lives, that have a propensity towards drugs. These women need help. These women are hurting. Again, I believe that more should be done, more programs and more education should be done from the social worker perspective, even from in psychologist perspective, that these women need help. Thank you, and have a nice day.